Crane dropped it like it meant to break her heart. The old upright piano slammed onto the gravel with a sickening crack, a puff of dust rising like a ghost leaving its home. The lid snapped open on impact, keys jangling like bones, one splintered leg jutting sideways like a broken limb. Marilyn flinched. She hadn't expected it to hurt this much. It wasn't the first thing she had thrown away this month. 2 bags of dresses still smelling faintly of lavender, a shoebox full of her mother's recipe cards untouched since the stroke, a music stand, 3 handwritten notes saying, "Play this for me when I'm gone." She hadn't played any of them. The junkyard was quiet this afternoon, unusually quiet for such a place. A few gulls circled high above, cawing like cynical spectators. Somewhere farther off, metal groaned under the weight of memory. Marilyn stood still, keys in her hand, staring at what used to sit in the sunroom of the house she grew up in. The piano's polished wood now looked gray, foreign, wrong. She turned to leave. "You play?" The voice came from somewhere behind a rusted tower of refrigerators. She froze. Out stepped a man, shirt-torn, shoes mismatched, face carved by weather and time. A long gray beard hung over his chest, and his hands, though dirty, moved with odd gentleness. He didn't look at her directly, just past her, at the ruined piano. "I used to," she said softly, then louder. "It's broken." "Not everything that sounds broken is," he murmured. He approached slowly, as if walking through a memory he hadn't expected to find. Without asking, he crouched beside the piano. His fingers hovered over the warped keys, some sticking up like chipped teeth. "I know this one," he said suddenly. She had a maple tone, just slightly sharp in the middle register. You don't find that anymore. Marilyn frowned. "You've played this piano before?" He smiled. "No, but I know the hands that played it. I can hear them." She wanted to leave. She should have. This wasn't safe, but her feet stayed planted in the dust. The man adjusted the bench, placed one hand over his heart, and the other on the few keys that still sat straight, and then he played. Not notes at first, more like breath, like memory uncoiling. The sound was raw, damaged, but unmistakably beautiful. A lullaby she hadn't heard in 20 years filled the warm junkyard air. Marilyn's knees nearly gave out. It was the song her mother used to play before bedtime, back when the world was simple and kind. It was called "Good Night, Rain." "I never learned the left hand," he said between chords, "but I always listened." She knelt beside him, her throat tightening. "Where did you hear that?" He didn't stop playing. His voice was quiet. "Through the fence years ago. I lived behind your house for a while. Your mom used to play for the neighborhood, you know. Open windows, open heart." Marilyn felt heat rise behind her eyes. "She used to hum while she played," he added, "even when her fingers hurt. You hated practicing, but she never stopped loving that piano." The note stumbled. He took a shaky breath. "I waited years to hear it again." She didn't remember a man behind the fence. She didn't remember windows being open. But now she remembered her mother's voice saying, "Always leave music in the air, sweetheart. You never know who needs it." Marilyn looked at the man, stranger, ghost, witness, and saw her own grief reflected in his eyes. He finished the last chord. Silence returned. "I should go," he said, standing slowly. "Wait," she whispered. He paused. She stepped to the bench, sat beside the broken instrument. Her fingers found the melody. She hadn't played in so long, but it came, hesitant, imperfect, true. And when her hands trembled, he filled the left hand. The sun dipped lower, casting long orange shadows over the scrapyard. The two of them sat beside the shattered piano, playing fragments of a song the world had almost forgotten. Marilyn's fingers were stiff, unused to keys that didn't respond, but every note she managed to find felt like breathing again. The stranger followed her lead, catching what she dropped, filling in what she couldn't reach, not with skill, but with memory. Between them, the melody rose again. She laughed once, a raw surprise sound, when he harmonized on a cracked F key. He smiled in return, eyes bright for the first time. When the music finally faded, silence returned like a soft coat over their shoulders. He stood and reached into his coat, pulled out something small. "I kept this," he said, placing it gently on the bench. "Found it in the alley behind your house. Must have fallen during a move or something." It was a photograph, faded, torn at the edge. Marilyn saw herself at 8 years old, sitting on that very bench, her mother's arm around her, both smiling, her fingers pressed awkwardly to a C major chord. She hadn't seen that photo in 20 years. Her hands trembled. "Why would you keep this?" The man looked away. "Because it reminded me life wasn't always hard." Silence again. "I used to be a teacher," he added. "Music theory. Until the drinking got worse than the playing. Then I lost everything. But every night, through your mother's window, I got a little piece of peace. She gave that freely. You should know that." Marilyn felt the burn in her throat grow heavier. "I didn't. Not until today." He began to walk away. "Wait," she called. He turned. She looked at the broken piano, then at him. Do you want it?" He laughed softly. "It's yours." It was hers, but I think she'd rather it be played, even if some of it's broken. The man paused, then slowly nodded. "I can fix some things. Not everything, but maybe enough." She smiled. It wasn't wide, but it was real. They loaded the cracked piano into the back of her truck together. One side sagged, and the keys still rattled like teeth, but it fit. Before he closed the tailgate, he ran his hand across the wood once more. "She played with her whole heart," he said. "That's why it stuck." Marilyn looked at the keys again. "Maybe I should try that, too." He stepped back. "Play it again," she said quietly, "for someone else who needs it." Then she got into the truck and drove. Later that week, an old piano appeared outside a city shelter, slightly crooked, a little cracked, but still singing. And every morning, people walking by stopped even just for a minute to listen. One little girl dropped her lunch bag and danced barefoot in front of it. An old woman wept into her scarf. Someone left a flower on the bench. No one knew the man who played it, but every note told them one thing, that something lost could still make music. Have you ever held on to something or someone just because you couldn't let go of the sound they left behind? Share your story in the comments. We read every word.